Every one of these men held the launch codes, the veto pen, the weight of a country that never stopped watching them. And at the end of the day, when no one else was in the room, they ate like everybody else's father. Cornmeal cakes, grilled cheese, a jar of jelly beans kept close enough to reach without standing up. Here's what the history books leave out of the textbooks. The most powerful office on earth never changed what these men actually wanted to eat. 13 presidents, 13 plates. The food never needed permission. Only the men eating it forgot that somewhere along the way. Number 13. Hoe cakes with Honey George Washington ate them nearly every morning at Mount Vernon, Virginia, through his 2 terms in the 1790s. Cornmeal, water, a little salt, fried flat on a griddle, or, in the old telling, on the blade of a field hoe held over the fire. Martha Washington's granddaughter said he liked them swimming in butter and honey, 3 of them, with tea, and nothing more. A cornmeal cake cost almost nothing to make in 1790's Virginia. A few cents worth of ground corn fed the man who signed the nation into existence. This was not a rich man's breakfast. This was a farmer's breakfast, and Washington never stopped being one. Number 12. Indian Pudding John Adams favored it above every other dish through his term from 1797 to 1801. Cornmeal simmered slow in milk, sweetened with molasses, baked for hours until it set dark and dense at the bottom of the dish. It was a Massachusetts staple, older than the country itself, built from what New England farms actually grew. A founding father, holding together a fractured young government, comforted by the same baked pudding his neighbors ate. Today it survives on a handful of tasting menus, sold as heritage dessert for $12 a bowl. It was never heritage. It was Tuesday, number 11. Macaroni and cheese Thomas Jefferson brought the recipe home from Paris and served it at White House state dinners starting in 1802, pasta boiled soft, folded into a cheese custard, and baked until the top blistered. This was not a peasant dish, and it was not fine French cuisine either. This was Jefferson's own invention, stitched together from 2 worlds. A plate of macaroni and cheese today, dressed up with truffle and called artisanal, runs $22. The ingredients haven't changed since 1802. Only the price has. Number 10. Callous rice, sugar, a little flour, dropped into hot lard until they puffed golden. Sold hot on New Orleans street corners through the 1840s and 50s for a few pennies apiece, wrapped in paper, eaten walking. Zachary Taylor loved them enough to request them at the White House during his brief 1849 term. Crisp outside, soft and faintly sweet inside, gone in 2 bites. The women who made Callis famous built an entire street economy on rice and lard and nothing else. History remembers the president who ate them. It rarely remembers who fried them. Number 9. Gingerbread cookies Abraham Lincoln's mother made them when he was a boy in Illinois, molasses dark, sharp with ginger, and he asked for them the rest of his life. Through the White House years, through a civil war that split the country he was trying to hold together. Her exact recipe never survived her. What survived was a grown man, carrying more weight than almost anyone in American history has carried, still reaching for his mother's cookies at the end of a day. They knew things about comfort that we will spend the next 50 years trying to remember. Number 8. Roast opossum. At a 1909 dinner in Atlanta held in his honor, William Howard Taft was served roast opossum surrounded by baked sweet potatoes. Rural Southern game food, hunted and dressed the same way sharecropper families across Georgia had fed themselves for generations before anyone put it on White House china. He ate it, praised it publicly, and it followed him into the newspapers for the rest of his term. This was not a novelty dish invented for a president's visit. This was a hunting tradition older than the counties it came from, dressed up for one night under White House lighting, then handed back to a president as though he'd discovered it. He hadn't. Rural Georgia had been eating well long before Washington noticed. Number 7. Grilled cheese and hot dogs Franklin Roosevelt's White House. through the 1930s and into the war years served notoriously plain food. Eleanor Roosevelt insisted on it, a deliberate show of solidarity with a country standing in bread lines. FDR himself loved a simple grilled cheese sandwich, just bread and butter and cheese in a hot pan, nothing more. In 1939, at a summer picnic for the visiting King and Queen of England, the Roosevelts served them hot dogs, a plate of the cheapest meat in America, put in front of European royalty on purpose, not by accident. It was a statement wrapped in a paper napkin. A country in the middle of the Depression wasn't going to pretend to be richer than it was, not even for a king. Number 6. Pedernales River Chili Lyndon Johnson's wife's family recipe. Venison or beef, cumin, chili peppers, deliberately no beans, simmered for hours at the Texas ranch he ran the country from through much of the 1960s. He served it to visiting senators and foreign dignitaries alike, unapologetically Texan, thick enough to stand a spoon in, with none of the apology that usually comes with serving something that plain to important people. Today it's called Texas Red on menus in Austin. $16 a bowl for what a ranch family once made from what they'd shot or raised themselves. The recipe didn't change. The price did. That's usually how it goes. The food stays the same, and somebody else learns to charge for it. Here's the part that gets erased. By the 1970s, the same processed foods that presidents once ate plainly and privately had become a marketing weapon aimed at everyone else. Richard Nixon ate cottage cheese with ketchup almost daily through his term, a habit his own staff found strange enough to write down. That same decade, food companies rebranded cottage cheese as a diet food for image-conscious Americans, packed with sodium, sold as discipline instead of what it actually was, which was just food. This was not health advice. This was a processed food industry learning that shame sells better than nutrition ever could, and a country slowly taught to apologize for eating the same plain things a president ate without a second thought. Number 5. Cottage cheese with ketchup. Nixon ate it for lunch through most of his presidency in the early 1970s, a private, almost embarrassing habit his own staff noted with some confusion at the time. Two ingredients from two entirely different corners of American food, a farm product and a factory condiment, never meant to share a plate, eaten together by the most scrutinized man in the country, day after day, because it was what he actually wanted, not because anyone told him to. He never explained it, never dressed it up for the cameras, never pretended it was some kind of delicacy worth defending. He was right not to. Nobody owes an explanation for what they actually like to eat, not a president, not anyone standing in their own kitchen at midnight. That's a small kind of freedom most people don't think to notice until it's gone, replaced by a decade of magazine covers telling them what a proper lunch is supposed to look like, priced and portioned by someone who never once ate at their table. Nixon didn't need permission to eat cottage cheese with ketchup, and he didn't ask for any. He just ate his lunch, went back to work, and let the country wonder why. Some of the smallest habits tell you the most about a man, and this one told the truth better than most of his speeches ever did. Number 4. Boiled peanuts and Southern Plate's Jimmy Carter, a peanut farmer from Plains, Georgia, before he was ever president, kept boiled peanuts, raw peanuts simmered for hours in salted water until soft, on hand through his entire term from 1977 to 1981. He grew the crop himself on his own land with his own hands long before he ever grew a national approval rating in Washington. No other president on this list ate a favorite food he had planted, harvested, and shelled himself. Every other man on this countdown loved something someone made for them. A mother, a wife, a street vendor, 2 centuries gone and never given credit. Carter is the only one who could trace his own favorite food back to dirt he had personally worked, season after season, long before anyone in Washington knew his name. That's not a small distinction to gloss over. That's the entire difference between inheriting a taste passed down at someone else's table and earning one with your own hands, in your own soil, on your own time. It's why his peanuts sit differently on this list than anyone else's dish, and why the story behind them still holds up decades later. A president who grew his own comfort food never needed a chef to remind him what he liked, and he never once pretended otherwise, in public or in private. Number 3. Jelly Beans. Ronald Reagan kept a jar of jelly beans on his desk in the Oval Office through both terms in the 1980s. Licorice, his favorite flavor, a habit that started the day he quit smoking and never let go of him after that. A California candy company even mixed a special blueberry bean for his 1981 inauguration, so the jar on his desk could be red, white, and blue. A grown man running the country, making decisions that moved the whole world, reaching for candy the same way anyone does when the day gets too long. Here's what the food industry doesn't want anyone thinking about too hard. None of this was ever really about taste. It was about what a president was allowed to be seen eating and who got remembered for it. Zachary Taylor's favorite food, kalas, sweet rice fritters fried in lard, dusted with sugar, wasn't invented in any White House kitchen at all. It was sold on French Quarter street corners in 1840s New Orleans, from baskets carried by free and enslaved black women who woke before dawn to fry them fresh for pennies apiece. A president ate their food, praised it by name, and history still doesn't remember most of theirs. That is not progress. That is theft with better manners further up this very list. Number 2, pork rinds with Tabasco. George H.W. Bush snacked on fried pork skins doused in hot sauce all through his term from 1989 to 1993. Cheap, salty, unglamorous, the kind of thing you'd grab off a spinner rack at a gas station on a long drive, not something you'd expect from the same table where broccoli had just been formally banned from Air Force One and every White House kitchen under his watch. The broccoli ban made headlines for weeks. Farmers shipped truckloads of it to the White House gates in protest. And through all of it, Bush never once softened his stance or pretended to like something he didn't. This was not a president quietly tolerating simple food because it tested well with focus groups. This was a president telling the cameras, flatly and without apology, exactly what he wasn't going to eat instead, snack in hand, daring anyone to make it a story. They did make it a story for years, print and television both, treating a bag of pork rinds like a scandal worth investigating. He never walked it back, never issued a clarifying statement, never once pretended the broccoli ban was about anything other than genuinely not liking broccoli. In a job built entirely around managing what other people thought of you, refusing to fake liking a vegetable might be the most honest thing on this entire list. Number 1. Fast food, well done by the 1990s and into the decades that followed. The McDonald's bag became as much a part of the presidency as the briefing folder sitting next to it on Air Force One. Burgers ordered ahead so they'd stay hot. Drive-through runs coordinated by advanced teams like any other stop on the schedule. A well-done steak with ketchup on the side becoming its own kind of headline, decades later, mocked in some corners and defended just as loudly in others. This was not a break from everything that came before it on this list. This was the exact same instinct that put hoe cakes on Washington's plate and cottage cheese on Nixon's, just wearing a different wrapper and moving through a drive-through window instead of a farmhouse kitchen. Reaching, at the end of an impossible day, for something that tastes like nothing at all is expected of you. No state dinner, no photographer angling for the perfect shot, no committee deciding whether the meal is dignified enough for the office. The bag changes, the wrapper changes, the century changes. 200 and some years of the most powerful men in the country carrying the weight of decisions the rest of us will never fully understand, and the pattern underneath it never actually broke. It just changed packaging, drive-through window by drive-through window, one president at a time, closing call back the hoe cakes swimming in butter. Call back the gingerbread a grieving country let a president grieve with. Call back the jelly beans in a jar that made an impossible job bearable for 5 minutes at a time. 230 years of the most powerful men in the country, and not one of them wanted caviar at the end of the day. They wanted what their mother made, what their wife cooked, what cost next to nothing, and meant everything. The food industry spent the back half of a century telling regular Americans that eating plain was something to apologize for, while the most photographed men in the world did it in private and called it their favorite. That is not a coincidence. That is the truth the marketing was built to bury. Comment below and tell me which one your grandmother made.